My name is Lauren Hawkins, I'm 24 years old, and what happened to me on my mother's birthday was something I never imagined could happen in my own family. You know those families that seem perfect on the outside but are completely dysfunctional on the inside? That was mine. I lived with my parents, Benjamin and Helena Hawkins, in a middle-class home in Ohio. My father has always been a businessman, the kind who believes that everything in life can be solved with money and control. My mother, on the other hand, has always been very dramatic, the kind of person who turns any situation into a Mexican soap opera. Ever since I was little, I felt that there was something different in the way they treated me. It wasn't at all obvious, you know? It was more subtle. When I got good grades in school, it was as if it was expected. When I made a mistake, even a small one, it turned into a scandal. I always tried to be the perfect daughter, the one who never gives any trouble, who always obeys, who always tries to please everyone. 24, I was still living with them because I was saving money to take a specialization course in digital marketing. I worked at a consulting firm and was doing very well in my career, but I still felt like I needed their approval for everything. It was like I was an eternal teenager in my own home. My mother's birthday was coming up. She would be 52 on March 15th. As always, she wanted a big party, the kind that feels more like a concert than a family celebration. She invited practically the entire neighborhood, co-workers, distant relatives, everyone. The party was going to be on Saturday, and all week she spent organizing every detail as if it were the wedding of the century. On the Thursday before the party, something strange happened at my work. I work as a marketing analyst at Miller & Associates, and that week we were closing a very important contract with a technology company. The project was worth around $50,000, and I was one of the people responsible for the final presentation. On Wednesday, after the client meeting, my boss, Mr. Anderson, called me into his office. He looked worried, and it made me nervous. Mr. Anderson is one of those people who always keeps his cool, so when he is visibly upset, it is a sign that something really serious is going on. He said to me, "Lauren, I need to talk to you about something sensitive. I received a call earlier today from someone who identified himself as a family member. This person said that you have some personal issues that may affect your work, specifically mentioning issues with honesty and trustworthiness." I was completely shocked. I asked, "Mr. Anderson, I don't understand. What kind of issues? Who called you? What family?" He replied. The person did not want to identify himself completely, only said that he was a close relative. He mentioned that you had some episodes of dishonesty at home, that you had taken money without permission, and that the family was concerned about your behavior. Lauren, you understand that this is very serious, especially considering that you have access to sensitive financial information of our clients. I could not believe what I was hearing. My mind was racing, trying to figure out who could have done this and why. I said, "Mr. Anderson, this is completely false. I have never taken money from anyone. I have never been dishonest about anything. Someone is lying about me, and I need to find out who and why." He gave me that look that bosses get when they don't know whether to believe you or not. Luckily, Mr. Anderson had known me for 2 years and knew about my work. He said, "Lauren, I know your work and I've never had any problems with you. But you understand that I can't ignore an accusation like that. I'm going to give you a week to sort this out. If we find out it's all a lie, great. But if there's any truth to it, we're going to have to rethink your position at the company." I left his office shaking. I couldn't figure out who could have done this to me. For the rest of the day, I kept thinking about all the people in my family who had my work number, who knew where I worked. The list wasn't very long: my parents, a few uncles, close cousins. I arrived home that Thursday completely shaken. My mother was in the kitchen, organizing things for the party, and my father was in the living room watching TV. I thought about confronting them immediately, but something told me to wait. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was fear, but I decided to observe their behavior over the next few days. On Friday, the day before the party, something happened that began to clarify everything. My mother received a call, and I was walking down the hall when I overheard part of the conversation. She was speaking softly, but I could hear a few sentences. "Yes, I called her at work yesterday." No, she doesn't know it was me. It has to be this way. She needs to learn to be more responsible. If she knew what was good for her, she would start paying more attention to us. My heart raced. It was my own mother. She had called my work and made up lies about me. But why? What had I done to deserve this? I spent the rest of Friday watching her, trying to understand her motivations. During dinner, she said, "Lauren, honey, you've been acting very independent lately. Maybe it's time for you to rethink your priorities. Family comes first, work is secondary." I didn't say anything in response, but I began to understand. My mother was jealous of my professional success. She had always been the center of attention in the family, and now that I was growing professionally, earning my own money, making my own decisions, she felt threatened. Saturday arrived, the day of the party. The house was full of people, music was loud, everyone seemed to be having a good time. I was trying to keep it normal, greeting the guests, helping with the organization, but my mind was racing with how to confront my mother about the call she made to my work. Party was in full swing when the incident that would change everything happened. It was around 8 o'clock at night, most of the guests had already arrived, and my mother was the center of attention, as she always liked to be. She was wearing a royal blue dress that had cost a small fortune and was telling everyone about her plans to renovate the house. I was in the kitchen washing some dishes when I heard my Aunt Dorothy yelling from the living room, "Helena! Helena! Something is very wrong here." Everyone ran into the living room to see what was going on. Aunt Dorothy, who is my mother's sister and has always been a bit of a drama queen herself, was holding my mother's purse with an expression of total shock. She said, "Helena, your wallet. Look at your wallet." My mother took the purse from Aunt Dorothy's hands and opened it. The expression on her face changed completely. She turned pale and began to shake. She screamed, "My money! Where's my money?" I came closer to see what was happening, as did all the other guests. My mother had taken the entire family's wallets and was spreading them all over the coffee table. She said, "I had $400 in here. $400 that I had set aside to pay for the DJ and the buffet. Where is the money?" My father came running from the balcony where he was talking to some friends. He asked, "What is going on here? Helena, what is it?" My mother, now with tears in her eyes, replied, "Benjamin, someone took my money. $400 are gone from my wallet." The mood of the party changed completely. People began to whisper among themselves. Some began to move discreetly towards the door. My father tried to calm the situation. "Helena, calm down. Let's think calmly. When was the last time you saw the money?" She replied, "This morning. I checked this morning when I was finishing setting up everything for the party. The money was there." That's when Aunt Dorothy, always ready to create more drama, suggested, "Helena, you should check the rooms. Maybe someone dropped it somewhere." My mother agreed, and a group of relatives went upstairs to search the rooms. I stayed in the living room, completely confused and worried. Something about this whole situation didn't make sense. My mom had always been very careful with money. She wasn't the type to lose things. For a few minutes, I heard screaming coming from the second floor. My cousin Jessica screamed, "We found it! We found the money!" We all ran to my room. Jessica was holding $400 bills. She said, "It was hidden under Lauren's mattress, right in the corner." I was in absolute shock. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. All eyes were on me, and I could see the distrust and judgment on people's faces. My mother looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and anger that I had never seen before. She said, "Lauren, how could you do this to me? On my birthday? In front of the whole family?" I finally managed to speak. "Mom, I didn't take that money. I don't know how it got into my room. Someone put it there." My father approached me with that serious expression he had when he was really angry. He said, "Lauren, enough of your lies. The money was in your room, hidden under your mattress. Do you think we're stupid?" I tried to explain myself. "Dad, you know me. You know I would never do that. I have my own money, why would I take Mom's money? Aunt Dorothy intervened. Lauren, maybe you took it on impulse. Sometimes people do things they don't plan on. The important thing now is for you to admit your mistake and apologize. I was getting desperate. I looked at all the faces around me and saw that no one believed me. Not even my own parents. I said, I'm not going to apologize for something I didn't do. Someone put this money in my room to frame me. My mother started crying harder. She said, how can you keep lying? How can you be so cruel to me on my own birthday? That's when my father made the decision that would change everything. He said, Lauren, if you can't even be honest about this, then you can't live in this house anymore. Pack your things and leave. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, Dad, are you kicking me out of the house for something I didn't do? He replied, you had the chance to be honest. You chose to keep lying. We can't have a dishonest person living in our house. My mother, still crying, said, Lauren, if you admit what you did and sincerely apologize, we can talk about you staying. But as long as you keep denying it, there's no point in discussing it. I looked at all the faces around me. Relatives, family, friends, neighbors, all looking at me like I was a criminal. I realized there was nothing I could say at that moment that would make any difference. The decision had already been made. With tears in my eyes, I said, okay, I'm leaving. But one day you'll find out the truth, and I hope you'll remember this moment. I went up to my room with a few relatives following me, as if I were going to try to steal something on the way. I grabbed some clothes, important documents, my laptop, and put everything in 2 suitcases. All the while, people were watching me and whispering comments. My cousin Jessica, who found the money, said, Lauren, you can still change your mind. Just admit what you did. I looked at her and replied, Jessica, I hope you never go through what I'm going through right now. Being accused of something you didn't do for your own family is the worst feeling in the world. I left home that night with 2 suitcases and a broken heart. I had nowhere to go right away, so I drove to a cheap hotel downtown. It was almost 11 at night, and I was emotionally exhausted. In the hotel, I sat on the bed and tried to process everything that had happened. In less than 3 hours, I had lost my family, my home, and possibly my job, because I still had to deal with the situation at work on Monday. On Sunday morning, I called my best friend, Sarah Mitchell, and told her everything that had happened. Sarah has known me since college and has always been a very rational and logical person. She said, Lauren, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you take $400 when you make a good living at your job? And more importantly, why would you hide it under your mattress? That's something a 10-year-old would do, not a 24-year-old would do. Sarah was right. The whole situation was very strange, very convenient. She offered me the couch in her apartment until I could get myself together, and I gratefully accepted. On Monday, I arrived at work determined to resolve the situation with Mr. Anderson. I knocked on his office door and asked to talk. I told him everything that had happened over the weekend, including the fact that I had been kicked out of my house. Mr. Anderson listened to me patiently and then said, Lauren, I need to tell you something. On Friday, I received another call from the same person who had called on Thursday. This time, the person said that you had admitted to having a gambling problem and that you were taking money from your family to pay off debts. I was shocked again. I said, Mr. Anderson, I have never gambled in my life. I won't even buy a lottery ticket. Whoever is calling you is deliberately lying about me. He continued, the person also said that you were going to be kicked out of your house over the weekend because of an incident involving money. Lauren, this really happened just as the person predicted. That's when I began to understand the scope of the plan against me. Someone wasn't just reacting to events, someone was orchestrating the whole thing. I said, Mr. Anderson, someone is deliberately sabotaging my life. The person calling you knew exactly what was going to happen this weekend because they planned it all themselves. Mr. Anderson looked thoughtful. He said, Lauren, do you have any proof of what you're saying? I said, "Not yet, but I'll get it." "Mr. Anderson, I've worked here for 2 years. Have you ever had a problem with me? Have I ever been late? Have I ever been absent without an excuse? Have I ever behaved suspiciously?" He admitted, "No, Lauren. Your work has always been impeccable. That's why these accusations surprised me so much." He gave me another week to sort it out, but I could tell he was starting to doubt the accusations. The fact that I had been kicked out of the house exactly as the person had predicted was too suspicious to be a coincidence. I stayed at Sarah's apartment that week and began to investigate everything that had happened. First, I tried to remember all the details of the party. Who had access to my room? Who knew where my mother kept the money? Who had a motive to want to harm me? The list of people who had been at the party was long, but the list of people who had the opportunity and motive was much shorter. I began to suspect my own mother strongly, especially after I had overheard that phone conversation on Friday. On Wednesday, I decided to do something I had never done before: hire a private investigator. I know it sounds dramatic, but my reputation, my job, and my relationship with my family were at stake. The investigator, Mr. Marcus Webb, was recommended by a lawyer Sarah knew. Mr. Webb listened to me tell the whole story and said, "Lauren, family sabotage is more common than you think. It usually involves jealousy, competition, or attempts to control. I'm going to look into the calls you made to your work, and I'm going to look into a few other things as well." He explained that he could track the calls made to the company, check the times, and possibly even get recordings if the company had a recording system. He could also look into my family's financial dealings to see if anything suspicious appeared. In the meantime, I tried to contact some of my family members to see if I could get more information. I called my cousin Jessica, who had found the money. I tried to ask her casual questions. "Jessica, do you remember exactly where you found the money in my room?" She replied, "Lauren, why are you asking that? You know exactly where the money was." I persisted. "Jessica, I'm just trying to figure out how the money got there. Do you remember if anyone else went up to my room before you found the money?" She got a little impatient. "Lauren, several people went up. Your mother, me, Aunt Dorothy, your father. We were all looking. Why don't you stop asking these questions and just admit what you did?" Interesting. My mother had gone up to my room before the money was found. And Jessica had been the one who found the money. Coincidence? I was beginning to doubt it. On Friday, Mr. Webb called me with the first findings. He said, "Lauren, I've got some interesting information. Calls to your company were made from a cell phone registered to Helena Hawkins, your mother. I also found out that your mother withdrew $1,000 from her account on the Friday before the party, not 400 like she said." My heart sank. I said, "Mr. Webb, does that mean my own mother planned all this?" He replied, "It seems so. But we still need more evidence to be absolutely certain. I'll keep investigating." That weekend, I was thinking about how to confront my family with this information. Part of me wanted to go over there right away and throw it in their faces. But another part of me knew I needed to have absolutely irrefutable evidence before I could make any accusations. Sarah advised me, "Lauren, you need to be strategic. If your mother really did this, she won't admit it easily. You need a plan." The following Monday, Mr. Webb called me with even more shocking information. He said, "Lauren, I've accessed the recordings of the calls made to your company. I have your mother's voice making the false accusations. But there's more. I found out that your cousin Jessica received $500 from your mother on the Saturday of the party, a few hours before the party started." I couldn't believe it. It wasn't just my mother, Jessica was involved too. She had been paid to find the money in my room. The whole scheme was even more elaborate than I imagined. Mr. Webb continued, "I have all the evidence you need. Recorded phone calls, bank records, wire transfers. Your mother planned this all meticulously." That afternoon, I asked Mr. Anderson for a meeting. I brought all the evidence Mr. Webb had gathered. I showed him the recordings of the phone calls, the bank records, everything. Mr. Anderson was shocked. he said. Lauren, this is unbelievable. Your own mother deliberately sabotaged your career. Why would she do this? I replied. Honestly, Mr. Anderson, I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't think she could accept that I was becoming independent, that I no longer needed her approval for everything. Mr. Anderson not only dropped all the charges from my file, but also offered me a raise and a promotion. He said, Lauren, from what you've been through and the professional way you've handled all of this, it's clear that you're exactly the kind of employee we want to keep. Now I had to decide what to do with my family. With all the evidence in hand, I decided to confront them directly. But not alone, I took Sarah with me as a witness. I arrived at my parents' house on Wednesday night. I rang the doorbell and my dad answered the door. He seemed surprised to see me. He said, Lauren, what are you doing here? I replied, Dad, I need to talk to you both. It's about what happened at Mom's party. He hesitated but let me in. My mom was in the living room watching television. When she saw me, she turned off the TV and said, Lauren, I hope you came here to apologize and admit what you did. I sat down in the chair across from them and said, Mom, I didn't come here to apologize. I came here because I found out the truth about what really happened that night. The expression on her face changed slightly. She asked, What do you mean by that? I pulled out an envelope with all the evidence Mr. Webb had collected. I said, Mom, I know you were the one who called my work and made up lies about me. I have the recordings of the calls. She turned pale but tried to keep her composure. Lauren, I don't know what you're talking about. I continued. I also know that you withdrew $1,000 on the Friday before the party, not $400 like you said. And I know that you paid Jessica $500 to find the money in my room. My father looked at my mother with an expression of total shock. He said, Helena, is what she's saying true? My mother started to get nervous. She said, Benjamin, are you going to believe her after everything she's done? I showed my father the documents. I said, Dad, here's the evidence. Bank records, recordings of phone calls, everything. The mother planned all this to incriminate me and throw me out of the house. My father looked at the documents in silence for a few minutes. When he was done, he looked at my mother with an expression I had never seen before. It was a mix of disappointment, anger, and complete disbelief. He said, Helena, how could you do this? How could you destroy our daughter's life like this? That's when my mother finally broke. She started crying and said, I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop pushing us away. She was becoming too independent, too proud of her work. She didn't need us anymore. I said, Mom, you sabotaged my career, embarrassed me in front of the whole family, kicked me out of the house, all because you were afraid of me becoming independent? She kept crying. Lauren, you don't understand. Ever since you started working at this company, you've changed. You don't talk to me like you used to, you don't ask for advice anymore, you don't need me anymore. I felt like I was losing my daughter. My father was visibly distraught. He said, Helena, this doesn't justify what you did. You lied, you manipulated, you bribed Jessica, you destroyed Lauren's reputation. How could you do this? My mother tried to justify herself. I thought that if she came home, if she felt vulnerable again, she would need us. I didn't think about the consequences. I was torn between anger and pity. On one hand, I was furious about what she had done. On the other hand, I could see that she was genuinely sorry and that her actions came from a place of insecurity and fear, not malice. I said, Mom, what you did was very serious. You almost destroyed my career. You got me kicked out of the house by my own family. You put me through the worst week of my life. She replied, Lauren, I know. I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this. My father said, Helena, you're going to have to fix this. You're going to call everyone who was at the party and tell them the truth. You're going to call Lauren at work and explain everything. And you're going to apologize publicly. Over the next few weeks, my mother kept every promise my father demanded. She called every relative who was at the party and told them the truth. She called Mr. Anderson and formally apologized. She even posted a message on Facebook admitting what she had done and publicly apologizing. The family's reaction was mixed. Some relatives were shocked and disappointed in my mother. Others tried to downplay the situation, saying that she had acted out of love. Cousin Jessica, who had been paid $500 to participate in the scheme, was completely embarrassed and also apologized. As for me, it took me a long time to fully forgive my mother. It's not easy to forgive someone who has betrayed your trust so profoundly, even if that person is your own mother. I came home after a month of living with Sarah, but I set some clear rules. I said, "Mom, Dad, I'm coming home, but things are going to be different. You're going to respect my independence. You're going to respect my career decisions. And you're not going to interfere in my work life again." They agreed, and we slowly began to rebuild our relationship. My mother began therapy to deal with her control issues and fear of abandonment. This helped our family dynamic tremendously. At work, things improved significantly. Mr. Anderson not only gave me the promotion he had promised, but he also made me responsible for an even bigger project. He said, "Lauren, the way you handled this situation showed a level of maturity and professionalism that is rare. We want to give you more responsibility." 6 months after all this drama, our family was in a much better place. My mom had learned to accept my independence and even began to take pride in my professional accomplishments instead of feeling threatened by them. She said to me, "Lauren, I know what I did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I have learned a lot about myself through therapy. I was so afraid of losing you that I almost lost you for real." I responded, "Mom, the important thing is that you have acknowledged your mistake and are working to change. That doesn't erase what happened, but it shows that you care enough to try to be better." Today, 2 years after this whole situation, I can say that what happened, as painful as it was, ended up strengthening our family in unexpected ways. My mother and I have a much more honest and mature relationship now. She has learned to support me instead of trying to control me, and I have learned to be more patient with her insecurities. At work, I have been promoted twice since then and am now a marketing manager for Miller & Associates. Mr. Anderson always jokes that this situation was the best test of character he has ever seen, and that it was because of this that he knew he could trust me with more responsibility. The experience also taught me a lot about myself. I learned that I am stronger than I thought I was, that I can handle difficult situations while maintaining my integrity, and that sometimes the people we love can hurt us deeply without meaning any harm. Cousin Jessica and I have also been able to rebuild our relationship. She admitted that she let herself be swayed by my mother's pressure and the easy money, but that she immediately regretted it. She now jokes that it was the most expensive $500 deal of her life because she lost the trust of half of her family for a few months. Most importantly, I learned that independence does not mean walking away from the people we love. It means establishing healthy boundaries and maintaining relationships based on mutual respect rather than control or dependence. For those of you watching who may be going through similar situations with a toxic or controlling family, my advice is, don't give up fighting for the truth, but also don't give up on the people you love if they show genuine repentance and a willingness to change. Sometimes the most difficult situations can lead to the strongest relationships, if both parties are willing to do the necessary work. And remember, you don't need anyone's approval to be successful in life, not even your family. Your self-worth must come from within, from your own values and achievements. Finally, I want to thank everyone who has watched this far. If you enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you have been through a similar situation. Sometimes sharing our experiences can help others who are facing similar problems. And here's an important tip. If you suspect someone is sabotaging your life or career, don't hesitate to seek professional help. Private investigators, lawyers, psychologists, all of these professionals can be essential in resolving complex situations like this. Truth always comes out, folks. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it hurts, but it always comes out. And when it does, you'll feel much better for having maintained your integrity throughout the process. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.